The next session is concentrating on a very specific topic, that means Lebanon. Actually, we know that in last year, I can say, or last 2 years almost, Lebanon faces different crises that we try, and we call this session as Lebanon at Crossroads, Politics and Economics in the Wake of Decisive Social Crisis. We have few speakers. I hope all of them will bring us different perspective. And for the first time, we have here, and you have the opportunity to have here Professor Laura SAYAH from Beirut Arab University, Sagesse University, and Lebanese University from Lebanon. She is the first time in our format, and we are very eager to listen your presentation. Professor, please, you have the floor.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here with you. And thank you also for dedicating a special panel for Lebanon, especially with all the crises we're going through since 2 years now. In fact, Lebanon's economic performance was seen to be highly vulnerable, dependent on different factors such as tertiary sector, imported inflation, political instability, public mismanagement, corruption, but mostly sectarianism and highly dependency on foreign politics. So COVID-19 came only as the last straw, in addition to the tragic blast that occurred last August, destructing most half of the capital. So COVID-19 and the destruction of Beirut port only increased the suffering of those who were originally vulnerable, and destructed also, or is destructing the social structure, or the social structure as we know it in Lebanon. Away from the pandemic, the consecutive governments failed to deal with all the disastrous challenges that were progressively piling throughout the last 3 decades. And in fact, we're paying off the policies, the economic policy that has been adapted, especially since the mid-1980s. The catastrophic economic downturn was observed since summer 2019, announcing a free fall of the Lebanese economy. So the fade economic growth has been observed for prolonged periods in Lebanon, coupled with structural economic or commercial deficits and decreasing foreign remittances, high corruption levels, intensive public debt, leading to dramatic losses of foreign reserves, along with retreats and outflows of billions of US dollars, causing the banking sector to be struck by a liquidity crisis and consequently adopting at a later stage different restrictions on all the operations. On the other hand, in a country where public debt was the major source of public financing and an economy based on vulnerable and low productive sectors such as banking, tourism, the war in Syria also came to increase the pressure on the national economy. So the growth rates kept falling since 2009, and the average inflation started increasing a lot since mid-2019. And Lebanon, as you all know, is one of the most indebted countries in the world. In fact, half of the budget revenues is absorbed by the public debt. On the other hand, and in order to alleviate the impact of the crisis, the coupled crisis, would that be the banking crisis, the exchange crisis, and the whole tragedy that was caused by COVID-19, the government was more or less absent from all the different alternatives that could have been implemented or the government was totally absent. The only possibility that was presented by the government was only to give the poor or thousands of poor households some kind of 400,000 Lebanese lira, that is equivalent to nothing now with the crisis, to the poorest families and most disadvantaged individuals, which was in fact also a fiasco because no one could take advantage of it, in fact. On the other hand, the industry is being struck by additional crises. The latest one would be, in fact, the boycott of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and other Gulf countries. And the boycott is hitting, in fact, the Lebanese exports, while the Gulf countries are considered to be the market or the first market to the Lebanese export, which includes also, or which introduces something or a classical variable in the Lebanese economy that is purely political. So the industry is suffering from the currency crisis, the scarcity of raw material, the liquidity crisis, and also the fall in national and international demand. Meaning that national economy is relying more and more on non-tradable sectors, and those non-tradable sectors are in fact the first sector that will be hit by the pandemic, or that were hit by the pandemic, or by any other political factor. So in this context, enormous number of workers lost their jobs, besides those who were forced to have half shift, or those who are still working are mostly being paid in Lebanese lira, which is equivalent to nothing right now. Excuse me. And in fact, this is where I come, in my opinion, to one of the most threatening parts of this crisis, is that the crisis is totally changing the structure of the society. So there is a total restructuring of the social strata. Those who were paid in Lebanese lira are finding themselves going to become in more than 50% of the most disadvantaged people, while those who are getting paid in US dollars, whatever the amount is, are seeing themselves as being then more than a mid-class individuals, which might create at a later stage important social conflicts only due to the exchange rate. What is also problematic at this level is that the government not only remained an observer, but the decision that been took by the government led to additional problems and deepened even more the crisis. Would that be the decisions led by the government? For example, the price of the bread has been increased sixfold, or the different decisions that have been made by the central bank or Banque du Liban that massively increased inflation throughout printing out and increasing liquidity on the market. Another problem was presented also on the table by COVID, was something that was already known but covered by the imports, was in fact the question of food security and food scarcity, especially that local production never sufficed the local consumption. And with the crisis, with the exchange crisis, imports fell a lot, and even those who used who used to grow vegetables, etc., were not able to even buy seeds from Europe. Another thing to add is that the crisis is pushing a lot of individuals to leave the country. And contrary to other periods, Lebanese individuals are leaving the country only to accept or jobs in dire conditions with extremely low salaries. The unemployment also is accelerated, and it will be also accelerated, especially that a lot of individuals who used to work in the Gulf countries are losing their jobs for different reasons. Would that be because of COVID, economic crisis, or for political other reasons? And not to mention all the economic impact of the exchange rate. While the official rate is $1 is equal to 1,500 Lebanese pounds, now the $1 is equivalent to 25,000 Lebanese pounds, and the rate is in fact dictated by mobile applications, and the government is not doing anything at this level. What I also find alarming is the impact of all those crises on the educational sector. The students are obliged to stay at home for most of the time, but a lot of them do not have access to the electricity, to the internet, and do not also have laptops or cell phones, especially when we talk about people who have more than one kid in the household. We should also add the negative role of the massive migration of university lecturers and school teachers, and those who remain do not have the possibility to go to the school or to the university due to the enormous cost of transportation. And this will lead definitely to a poverty trap that will never stop. So we will be in fact paying the price of this crisis for like 15 or 20 years to come. And students, in fact, are not learning a lot, especially when the crisis exploded. A lot of schools did not provide any academic material to their students. Plus, with the crisis, there will be a lot of pressure on public schools that are originally not equipped and cannot host a big number of students, especially that those public schools also receive Syrian students, Syrian refugees. And this will increase the cost on the government and will keep on the margin a lot of children who will not be able to access education. I will not take too much more time, but I believe that what is currently happening in Lebanon is only a prelude, let's say, to what will be coming next. In fact, COVID-19 came only to exacerbate what we have been experiencing for the last 30 years. And the situation will become even worse with the Syrian Civil Protection Act and the different regional conflicts, and with the total absence of any political will to find a solution for this chaotic frame. Finally, I think that putting aside the classical variables that used to impact the Lebanese economy, I believe that there are two major threats: the threat on education and the threat of the sudden restructuring of the society. And as we all see here in Lebanon, we do not see any perspective or any horizon, especially that the economic deadlock is highly associated to the regional politics. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Professor, for your thoughts, and your presentation give us a different taste related to Lebanon. Now, I would like to move to the next speaker, our friend and colleagues as a think tanks networks. I would like to introduce Dr. Abdul Halim Fadlallah. Also, I would like to thank you at the beginning for receiving me in Beirut 2 months ago. Thank you very much, Dr. Fadlallah, who is a chairman, the Consultative Center for Studies and Documentation in Beirut. Doctor, you have the floor. Please share with us your thoughts related to the Lebanon crisis. Your mic.
Thank you very much, my friend Flavius and all colleagues, for invitation and for insisting on organize this events yearly despite of pandemic and critical healthy situation. And thank you, Dr. Laura, on detailed explain about the Lebanese economic crisis. Actually, Lebanon is a clear example about the consequences of interaction between three types of problem and the crisis. The political crisis, especially the presence of unbalanced and ineffective political system which work without center of gravity and lead Lebanon anytime to be a failed state. The second factors, the second crisis is the regional and international crisis which push the country to be in reach of regional fire nearby country and under its dangerous consequences. And the third thing is the bad governance or the economic problem and the crisis related to bad governance and the new liberal choices and the Western neoliberal economic choices which based on rental resources. Indeed, Lebanon, as the last World Bank report mentioned, live in one of the worst economic crises in the world since 1850. And we have long list of the terrible events and figures and indexes which describe the declining trend of anything in Lebanon. The hyperinflation, the highest level of unemployment since 3 decades, the lucky people in Lebanon now, which keep their jobs, losing about 90% of their purchasing power in their income. But despite this vulnerability and the fragility of Lebanon still having the ability to avoid the worst and taken into account that it managed to overcome the most dangerous challenge and the crisis, such as the effects of and consequences of Syrian war and Syrian conflict, the terrorist attacks and the Israeli threats. These strong and positive points in Lebanon related to correct strategic choices, which represent mainly in its correct, in having an active role in the region, which enable Lebanon to protect itself from the dangerous consequences of conflict and from having the solutions as before at expenses and not in its interest. That's mean despite the fragility and vulnerability, Lebanon still having some strong points preventing Israel from attacking Lebanon, defeating the terrorist Takfiri groups, keep unity. It's so important point. Keep unity of country despite some sounds claim to shift the regime and the system. This bad political system to shift this regime from consensual into federation system. And despite the sectarian escalation managed by pro-American and Saudi groups and the parties, but we have in opposite side a critical point which threats the stability and deep national interest of Lebanon and Lebanese people. The first one, the foreign interference, which concentrate now, it's so important point, which concentrate now to transform the economic crisis into political crisis as approach to change the political map and to manipulate of national balances. This thing could lead to more dangerous level of internal tension. But the main and final goals is to change the geopolitical position of Lebanon to be closer to the West. The American approach now threat the upcoming parliament election as an introduction to make such a deep change. Meantime, USA did his utmost to prevent any real and deep solution for informal inside Lebanon. The economic and monetary and financial and social crisis which hit Lebanon since 2 years ago, the American policies now put obstacles against any real solution. To achieve this purpose in this context, USA does. The first American choice is to deepen its presence in Lebanese institution milieu, to be an insider insider in this formal and governmental institution, not only as an influencer on this institution. We can see this mainly and especially in the conditional aids and assistance to security apparatus in Lebanon. In other words, USA ignore frequently the role of Lebanese government, but concentrate its effort on the role of deep state or some part of this deep state as the base of its influence and the presence in the state. Or, in other words, America tried to isolate its relation with the institution, with the institution which constitute this deep state from the relation with the formal government and the formal state. The second American choices related Lebanon is refusing or putting obstacles in the face any program to rebuild Beirut port via the Lebanese official institutions as a way to put the international aids in the hand of NGOs, not only in building or rebuilding the port, but in the rebuilding the economic and in the saving the economic and in the recovery the economic as a whole. This is used as a proxy tools in American political battle in Lebanon against resistance. The third thing is preventing any immediate foreign aid to Lebanon, especially from its rich allies, and at the same time refuse and put veto against Lebanese attempts to develop the economic relationship with East countries, the pivot Eastern, such as China and Russia and Turkey and Iran and other West Eastern countries. Which are ready, these countries ready to help Lebanon, especially on the infrastructure fields. The main problem as conclusion in Lebanon now, in all levels, is the Western and American approach, which see any political entitlement as an opportunity to change the regional and the strategic position of the country of Lebanon without caring about the bad consequences of this kind of policies on the unity, on the stability, on the national coherence, on the level of income, on the economic indexes and figure and aspects of this. The main factors now influence the Lebanese situation and lead to more escalation and tension is the first one is the conflict and the struggling for Lebanese change the Lebanese positioning and to be pro-American camp. But in opposite side, there is a potential emerging of other point and other factors, such as a new regional scene reflect the change of Arab position towards Syria, which in the future, near future, influence the situation in Lebanon. The second one, the Saudi failure in the Yemen war, which lead to escalation against Lebanon now. The third thing, the unclear future of American military presence in Syria and Iraq, and the American defeat in Afghanistan, and the back to nuclear negotiation with Iran. All these factors change the position of Lebanon into the regional conflict, and this transformation reflects on the current situation in Lebanon, which should make adaptation with this new factor. We have only and only in Lebanon way to face this dilemma: building a just, strong, and balanced country, balanced state with a productive economy, effective diplomacy, and having the ability to face internal and external challenges and risks. So the way out of crisis in Lebanon represents save the Lebanese independence and unity, adopt diversification in foreign relations and economic foreign relations, political foreign relations, and the policy of Lebanon in economic and the political and diplomatic level, with effective and the positive role in the Arab world, struggling to go out of American umbrella because it is so dangerous now and so critical, and the consequences of being pro-American now has a high price, political and economic and other. Build up a coherent economic based on production and diversity, which is main pillar of recovery and independence. The American policies toward Lebanon putting us in phase two bad choices: to join its own camp completely with its security and the political and national risks, or to turn Lebanon, to make Lebanon a failed state. The main purpose should be to avoid emerging another failed state in Middle East, another country involving in the conflicts led by USA camp, emerging a new factors which cause more misbalance in the region, mainly in the Arab-Israeli conflict field. This interaction between the political and economic and national aspects of crisis in Lebanon, which could be seeing to be the gate to looking for solution, deep solution, long-term solution for this problem and this crisis, complex crisis of Lebanon, which have a lot of aspects. The economic and the political and the security aspects is not all aspects of this crisis, but we need to build a new state in Lebanon as a strong base. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Fadlallah. You have also received a few questions after all the presentation. We'll try also to answer at that questions. So now we are moving to our colleague from IPIS, Dr. Moshtaba Ferdowsipur, senior expert and in the IPIS. So, Doctor, we would like to listen to your thoughts related to this subject. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Flavius. Hello, everybody, and good afternoon. Mr. Chairman, dear audience, first of all, I would like to thank the organizer of this important meeting. Despite all the problems, Lebanon is of great importance in West Asia, especially in the area of Shamat, to examine the crisis in this country and answer the main questions of this panel. I will mention 7 basic elements, interior elements. First, Lebanon has a tribal system. This is a good but corrupt system. Second, Lebanon is a rich and energetic country, mostly able to exploit this God given capacity. Third, the Lebanese power triangle consists of 30 components: the army, the nation, and resistance. I believe that this continuous combination means progressing in Lebanon. But external elements. The main goal of the West and Israel in Lebanon is brought the country into a civil war with the intention of destroying the party involved in it. Second, the main problem of West Asia, especially Lebanon, is the Israel regime and the continuation of the occupation. Third, the waking of Lebanon is the waking of the Arab world, and this is significant. Fourth, the problem of the current economy in Lebanon is the economic sanction and siege. Finally, the West has blocked financial and credit transfers and remittance. This Western practice in the Middle East has intensified and perpetuated crisis in the region. Thank you for attention, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mostaba Ferdozipur. You stayed the time, and you were very concise and precisely to the point. Now you are moving to our colleagues from Italy, from European Union, Mr. Emiliano Stornelli, who is the chairman and founder of the Italian think tank Religion and Security Council that are based in Rome. Dear Emiliano Stornelli, you have the floor.
Hello, everybody. I would like to thank President CABA-MARIA and also President Mulzan for this new invitation. And actually, I'm glad to see the both of you all together. I hope that we will be able to meet each other again very soon. And I also want to thank the previous speakers, and I listened to them very carefully and with much respect, especially the speakers based directly in Lebanon, who are going through a this very difficult situation. Actually, my last time in Lebanon dates back to December 2019. So it was in the middle of the so-called revolution and right before the eruption of the COVID era. And then I couldn't come back anymore due to the pandemic, and all my projects there got stopped. And at the same time, I was spared, all the drama the country has been going through, although I've been following the situation very closely from the northern Mediterranean, I would say. So I would like to share my reading from here, and A few months ago, MEPEI President CABA-MARIA published the first issue of his journal, MENA in Focus, and I was invited to write an article about Lebanon. And the title of this article says Lebanon is going through a dark tunnel with no end in sight. And that was the situation I left the country in December 2019. And sadly, I must say that this is still the situation in which the country finds itself right now in this very moment. And to my view, also the prospects looking ahead will keep to be bleak. And so the presentation of the agenda of this conference mentions three main points. Precisely the economic crisis, the political deadlock, and the social divisions as the main factors causing this deep crisis. And I would say that these factors are not separate tracks. They are all intertwined, so it's not possible to solve the whole situation just by solving one track. All these tracks needs to be addressed at the same time, in order to address the very complex and complicated Lebanese equation. That's why in these 2 years, no substantial step forward has been taken in order to address the economic default or to make the political process more viable, and not even at least to mitigate, to alleviate the suffering of the people. And if we look ahead, there will be elections in March, at least they are supposed to be the next political elections, but it's difficult to win any hope on these elections in order to relaunch the political process and at the same time improve the economic situation and improve also social relations, which include also relations between different religious groups. Most probably the next parliament will be a kind of photocopy of the current one. And this means that most probably no reform or adjustment of the economic governance of the country will be introduced, and this would make the economic situation even worse. And the previous speaker, Dr. Fadlallah, mentioned the role of NGOs, and in this way, the NGOs will increase their role even further, like it or not, because they have become, for many people, the only lifeline they have. This is not good in my view, because Lebanon would need strong institutions to take charge of the reconstruction, to take charge of the governance of the country without leaving it to private entities. But unfortunately, the surrounding world doesn't trust Lebanese institutions anymore for lending financial support, as long as reforms won't be taken. The next parliament could feature anyway some new members. I mean, independent representatives of the revolutionary movement of the October Revolution, those activists who have been advocating for a total overhaul of the system, anti-establishment representatives, although they are like single entities. They have been able so far to gather around a common platform, and the fact that they are running as candidates in a separate way, not with a unified, not within a unified party, and a shared platform, will likely undermine their performance at the elections if they will be taken. Anyway, it will be a new factor within the parliament, and perhaps this could be the beginning of a new process, because if they will be playing their cards as politicians in a wise way from a strategic point of view, perhaps they can grow over time and be able to steer the political process toward more positive developments for change. And with regards to the traditional parties, factions belonging to the so-called establishment, I think that the October Revolution made the old cleavages, fault lines dating back to the Civil War surface again as stumbling blocks in order, stumbling blocks for the political process. I don't see an actual possibility to get to new compromises, national consensus, agreements in order to relaunch the political process, because the divide, the polarization is they are too wide right now. Although it's a matter of will, despite the big differences, which also refer to different views in terms of foreign affairs and strategic relations. Traditional Lebanese parties and factions and leaders would easily find some common ground, and this common ground is represented by the dignity of the Lebanese people, because which has been totally overlooked by political parties. They, for the sake of the, especially of the new generation, for their future, they deserve to have an ordinary life in terms of getting education, to live in a normal country. They could get together around at least a temporary agenda to bring about some basic reform or measures, also in coordination with the international community. It doesn't matter now. The important thing is to have the country back on track, and without compromising with political agendas of other countries. Just a temporary situation for the sake of the country. So I think that traditional political parties could find a common ground, a common interest, for instance, in rebuilding the port in Beirut. Otherwise, the port Beirut will become like the railway. In 30 years after the end of the Civil War, the railway and the train has not been reconstructed or reactivated, and the port Beirut will likely become a second case of this kind. So I think that for the sake of the Lebanese people, the traditional parties leaders, despite the competition, the rivalries, and the big problems that there are among them, if they prove to have some responsibility for the future of the Lebanese, especially the new generation, they should set aside their differences and take their time and work for the country and not for their individual political agendas. And I would like to conclude by saying that I'm not optimistic at all about this possibility. I used to be more hopeful in the past, but I was younger, and now, after seeing the last few years and also the behavior of the stakeholders in Lebanon, I'm not hopeful at all that any improvement will be made. But Lebanon is also known as a land of miracles. So I leave Lebanon to the divine hands of all religions that have been present in Lebanon, and maybe they are the only ones that they can solve the situation for the sake of Lebanon, for the sake of the Lebanese people, to save the country and its great people. Thank you very much, and I'm available for going on with the discussion and answer the questions that will come. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Stornelli. We receive also during your talks another few questions. So I suppose that this panel, even though it's not so common on this kind of broad conference, but started to be very interesting in raising a lot of questions. Now, last but not least, our panelist is Dr. Corneliu Pivariu. He's a security and international relations senior expert from Romania, and also I would like to thank him for our cooperation during also the previously events on MENA issue. Dr. Corneliu Pivariu, you have the floor. Please try to stay in that minutes that is allocated to you. Thank you very much, Doctor.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I will try to shorten my presentation in order to include in the time accorded. I will start with a short quote, which I consider very appropriate for this intervention, which French Minister of Foreign Affairs say about Lebanon. Lebanon is a Titanic without orchestra. Lebanon is an iconic country for the Middle East and could be considered a true barometer of the regional geopolitical situation, and also for the fact that what happened in Lebanon during the last decade until now is absolutely true for numerous countries of the world, countries which no resources of their own, withstanding multiple foreign influences that are confronted with a massive immigration, have on their territory numerous refugees and are overcome by corruption. The August 4th, 2020 explosion in the port of Beirut has aggravated the economic crisis Lebanon is witnessing and provoked a new political crisis. It was only in September 2021 when a new government was formed under the leadership of Najib Mikati. As all we are well known, the Lebanon is a prisoner of the sectarian political system, whereby the power is shared by the three main religious communities. New parliamentary elections are scheduled for March 27, 2022, and in autumn in the same year, the parliament is to elect a new president. It will be no surprise if the parliamentary elections are postponed and a new political crisis emerge. In fact, the politicianist hesitation to reform the present political system are emphasized by the initial promises of granting seats to the parliament to the diaspora, a promise nowhere to be found in the final form of the electoral law. From an economic standpoint, Lebanon is witnessing the most severe crisis of the last 150 years, with the GDP shrunk from $55 billion in 2018 to 33 billion in 2020, and a further decrease of 20.5 billion is expected in 2021, as World Bank estimated in October 2021. As per capita GDP decreased by around 40%. The unemployment increased from 28% in February 2020 to 40% to the end of the same year. According to the UN data, 78% of the Lebanese live under the poverty and 36% in extreme poverty. According to a Reuters research, the food index price increased in September 2021 by 557% as compared to October 2019, and the economy contracted by 30% as compared to 2017. The Lebanese pound lost around 90% of its value as compared to October 2019. As far as corruption is concerned, the latest data published by Pandora Papers mentioned the name of the Prime Minister Najib Mikati, of the Governor of Central Bank, Riyad Salameh, and that of the former Prime Minister and Minister of Education, Hassan Diab. The clientelistic political system and the way the public contracts are assigned domestically may be subject of an extensive debate. Under such circumstances, from 2019 until now, only 300,000 Lebanese citizens who lost any hope that the domestic situation could improve emigrate and were looking for a solution outside the country. Unfortunately, those who left the country and those who will have a good professional training and a financial status can assure them a new beginning in a new country. Such event will further diminish the possibility of Lebanon recovery. A people who, for a long period of time, went through serious crises and had the stamina diminished by numerous immigration waves, subject at the same time to the immigration pressure and foreign interest, is not an inexhaustible reservoir and might be seriously affected by such event. The sectarian and group interests are overwhelming and are used by foreign influence. So I am quoting here about France, Iran, Israel, Turkey, USA, Saudi Arabia, other Gulf countries, China, Russia, for attaining their own goal and for testing solution for the area-related issue. Such circumstances made the Maronite Patriarch Bashar Boutros al-Rey to declare on August 15, 2020 that we will not allow the Lebanon to become a compromise card between nations that want to rebuild ties among themselves. I consider that on a short run, the economic situation in Lebanon will continue to deteriorate, if that is still possible, without a further dissolution of the state. On a longer run, the forecast of the evolution in the Middle East, and especially in Lebanon, are extremely indefensible. Yet the country, as I said, fully deserves a characterization of a barometer of the geopolitical development in the area. Unfortunately, the Lebanese brought the country where it is now, helped, undercut, of course, by foreign interest. The 2022 election do not seem to bring an optimist, and in the spirit of the Lebanese tradition, they are to be postponed without a clear time horizon. Timing is not the issue, but finding a viable solution for replacing the present sectarian political system, it do not seem a firm political will in this respect. An improvement of the general situation in the Middle East could have a favorable influence on Lebanon, but I believe it depends first and foremost on the Lebanese. It is possible that the diaspora come with a political solution and can be successfully implemented. Do the rich Lebanese immigration want to have a country when they to return with nostalgia? Or will Lebanon continue to sink itself into the conflict without a foreseeable end of the Middle East? To use the title of today's webinar, I do not see a chance for a new beginning in Lebanon. The answer should come from the Lebanese themselves. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Cornel Pibariu. And after these presentations, we would like to raise a few questions, not all of them, because we receive a bunch of questions actually. One of the questions that we receive, I would like also to put now, is what are the needed steps in order to rehabilitate Lebanon. If Professor Laura or Dr. Fadlala, few thoughts about on this question.
I will answer first. Excuse me, Dr. Abdelhalim, if you would like to interfere too. I think the major problem is that there is absolutely no political will. And if we talk about politics, I think everything is dictated from outside. We don't have absolutely no will or no freedom margin, or at least this is what I see. In terms of political possibilities or economic scenarios, excuse me, the problem is that everything that is happening have been constructed since the mid-1980s, in my opinion. And this is exploding now. So it is not something that has been creating 2 or 3 years ago. So even though there are a lot of possibilities to find solutions to the current economic crisis, I'm not sure there is a will to create any possible scenarios or any potential policies to get us out of this chaos.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Dr. Fadlala. If you have something to add?
Yes, the main problem, economic problem in Lebanon is in the long-term choices. The long-term choices since the mid of 19th, okay, when we adopted a bad choices, a bad policies on 3 levels. The first one, the monetary policies, and the economic as a financial or fiscal policies, and on the level of economic as a whole and investment level. The problem is in the policies and in the politics level at the same time, because the deep interest of the political layer, the political class in Lebanon, the political main parties in the 19th, it was with this kind of policies, with kind which pushed the economic into this crisis. We avoided in the past this kind of crisis in 2002 and in 1996 because of the international and the foreign interference in Lebanon. Now there is no way and there is no space to such as interference. The second point is about the diversification of the economy, Lebanese economy. The diversification at the base of production sector and foreign economic relationship with other countries is the core point of recovery of Lebanese economy, because this diversification gives us the competitiveness position in this kind of relationship and enable us to discover our real interest. Real interest, I mean political real interest and real economic interest, because the rental economy didn't give us the chance to discover our real interest in the foreign relationship, in the East choices, in the diversification in the economic relationship with other countries. The relation with Arab countries has a priority, but on the base of equity, equilibrium, and in the real common interest, economic interest. I think the real relationship with other Arab countries, it's not in the trade balance. It's a marginal issue, and not in the trade issue level, because this couldn't live as to our common interest. The core of our common interest in the investment level, especially in the investment in the infrastructure sector. The emerging of the big and the huge infrastructure, regional and international project in the region and in the Near East, it's so important to have our part, our share in this new emergence. About the relationship, relation with Syria, because somebody asked about this issue. Unfortunately, there is no any new signs about regain the healthy relationship with Syria. The reason is the political reason. There is no another obstacles against this choices, against this policies. We have some people in Lebanon, some parties in Lebanon, some groups in Lebanon didn't discover the deep interest, common interest with Syria state.
So thank you very much for this comprehensive answer. And the next question is related to the energy crisis, meaning fuel and electricity. And we talk about a little bit this issue. And the question is, what are the possible solutions? And is the electricity sector leading towards renewable technology? Yeah, actually, Professor Laura, I think you also maybe have certain idea on this issue, and Dr. Fadlala. What are the possible solution? Yeah, possible solution on energy crisis.
One of the possibilities that have been currently implemented is going to the solar panels. If we're talking about individual households, for example, but it remains a micro solution. So solar panels needed to generate electricity or to generate warm water, etc. But again, it remains only a very located solution. Other than that, at the macro level, there has been some attempts by Hezbollah to bring oil, for example, from Iran. Another agreements has been made between the Lebanese government and the Iraqi government in order to import also crude oil from Iraq to be traded at another period, etc. But for the moment, no serious solution has been made, even though a lot of possibilities might exist, such as using, for example, generating electricity from water or from air, etc. But as far as I know, all the plans or the governmental policy that has been at least projected for the moment, none of them has been applied.
Thank you very much. Dr. Fadlala, if you have also to share with us something.
Yes, in Lebanon, we have several plans to recover this sector, electricity sector. We need a new investment, but it's not a time of a private sector. It's a time of public investment financed by the aids or by the foreign and internal debt or internal loans. Another thing, we need a state-to-state relationship to import the oil and gasoline from other states, because this more convincing with the Lebanese situation. Now we couldn't accumulate a new loans and new public debt to finance the electricity sector. We need help and aids and state-to-state relationship, because this issue enable us to overcome this critical situation at the energy sector level.
Thank you very much. And we'll pick only one question, and after that, we will conclude our panel, because maybe you should think about, or you plan a special session or special debate on Lebanon issue, because this kind of panel, raises so many questions. So the last question, also I will pick the last one also. Has the worsening in the social economic situation affected the government? How did the crisis influence the civil and security system? Maybe here you can also develop, will the crisis cause the disruption of the Lebanese army or something like that? Firstly, if you like, Dr. Fadlala or Professor Laura. Yeah, please, Dr. Fadlala.
I think that the role of Lebanese army is so important in this time, because serve and save the stability in Lebanon. I don't see any new or real signs about this instability in Lebanon, especially on the security level, because the security and the security apparatus and the Lebanese army play its role in this time to maintain the stability in Lebanon. We don't need anything, although serve the unity of this apparatus and this institution as a sign of unification of the Lebanese people.
Yeah. So, Professor Laura, if you have something to add, and after that we will conclude this panel. Yes.
Okay, just a thought. I totally agree with Dr. Fadlallah, and a couple of years ago, the Lebanese army was considered to be one of the most respected public institutions in Lebanon. But I think we should reconsider the possibility of holding of the Lebanese army, especially that they now are being considered as one of the most disadvantaged strata in Lebanon, with their salaries equivalent to absolutely nothing. They're not being able to go to their jobs, etc. So it's just a hope that the army, in my opinion, remains strong and has the ability to continue the task they're assigned to. Thank you.
Thank you very much for all 5 panelists.